It is time for Tennessee to sue the NCAA. The foot is on the throat. Put it out of business. Hit like and subscribe if you agree with me. There is no way that the NCAA could defend itself. Its budget is about half of Tennessee's alone. That doesn't count if Tennessee called up some buddies and said, hey, I could use some friends, Michigan, North Carolina, people who have been through NCAA issues, because we want to end this thing right now. Caleb, I believe this is the time. So if we can set the poll question, it's today's tough question and the poll question to start on YouTube, I would like to do that. And unless you can change my mind, I would like for it to be this. Is it time to sue the NCAA? Yes. Foot on the throat. No. They still scare me just a little bit. And if you're like that, I understand, but it's not how we're going to be. Boundless Moving brings you today's tough question. From their 2-hour minimum to their turnkey operations, they have you covered. Their motto is personal service without limits. And it's not just a tagline. It's part of who they are. It's our DNA. They moved me. They should move you. Bounds Moving in the Charlotte and East Tennessee area. Caleb, is it time to sue the NCAA in this business, as Jay-Z used to like to say?
You know, when you first proposed this to me, and typically I propose the crazy takes, as Dave will tell you. It's usually crazy Caleb takes when we propose these type of things.
Crazy Calhoun.
Crazy Calhoun. But this time it's crazy Dave. Crazy Uncle Dave. And so I thought it was crazy when you first said it. And then I thought, the judge's ruling this past weekend, last week, that basically granted the temporary restraining order and the special injunction, the reason he granted that ruling, the reasoning was these limits are going to be found an antitrust violation, and therefore while the ruling is waiting to be ruled on, any player that can't take advantage of their monetary value is illegally being held back. Well, by that logic, a lot of players over the past 2 years, ever since when NIL went into effect in 2021, 3 years, they've lost a lot of monetary value, haven't they? Because of the restrictions on NIL.
They have, but let me make sure we're on the same page. My page is the university should sue them because they have to spend some of their budget to go back to a kid who just sees headlines about Tennessee's under investigation again. That is why, if I'm the University of Tennessee, I sue them. Now, the kids, if they were of financial means, let's say the Mannings were in this because the Mannings were well off, or some other well-off family could sue as well. They could have done this sort of thing a long time ago. But most families don't want to get involved in some sort of lawsuit with the game that your son is trying to play, and you have to pay the lawyer fees and you could lose. So it takes the school. So the school should go out there, the University of Tennessee, in a civil suit. This is not a criminal suit, but in a civil suit, say, we want $100 million because we had to do all of this work of all of these coaches. We can itemize it, wink, wink, because you and I could put together a list of phone calls and time spent and come up with $100,000 or $1 million and say, I want that back because of that headline you leaked to Pat Forty and other reporters that said there was another NCAA investigation on the way. I think it's easy money. Tell me on the message board that I'm wrong. And then when the NCAA loses, you officially know they have zero power, which I believe is the case right now. I'm ready to be proven wrong.
What would be, I guess the question would be, what law did the NCAA break? What contract did the NCAA violate?
They didn't break anything. It's a defamation contract. It's a defamation, a lawsuit. It's you ran us down. You leaked information. You did it purposefully. And as Caleb and I know through going through mass communications law, they are a public figure. So you have to prove that the NCAA did so with malice. It's not like if I pick Tennessee Junior out on our message board and I just start ripping Tennessee Junior on every social media. Well, he could sue me very easily. But Caleb and I And most people who are involved with sports are considered public figures. So you have to have malice. I believe the NCAA had malice. I believe they wanted to hurt Tennessee to control all of the governing of football. And I believe it hurt Tennessee in recruiting.
There's another layer to defamation, though. That's kind of a big one.
But what does Hank Kingsley say about suing them?
Today's tough.
He doesn't say that. He says,
"Hey now."
There we go.
It also has to be false. What would be the falsity of the NCAA leaking that information? What did they leak that was false?
Well, if you manufacture your own investigation, it's almost just an attack more than it is a bit of information.
Yeah, but defamation has to be
malice law. You're right on the malice law. Or, I'm sorry, in the defamation law. It's malice
Yeah.
and false.
Because the NCAA would just say in court nothing we leaked was untrue. And then the defamation lawsuit goes out the window.
Well, you know as well as I do that you and I could get on the phone by the end of the week. And now T. Scott Jones, we're represented by Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones. He wouldn't take any flippant case just to take our money. But if we wanted to, we could find some other lawyer to do that. You can sue for anything. So whatever it is, the point being that they should sue now, if they were ever going to, is that the NCAA is in a very vulnerable position. So we're not going to do that with T. Scott Jones, but it could easily be done. By the way, represented by T. Scott Jones, Banks and Jones.
Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
All right, so sue or no sue? What do you got, Caleb? We can manufacture a lawsuit if we really want to. We can make it hard on the NCAA so they can't do their business in an efficient factor and might cost them their existence. I'm all for it.
Okay, here's the... I'll say sue, but it would be more of a PR thing to do it because I'm not sure Tennessee has a case. I want to address a message board question. Kaylin says, just have to prove that it hurt recruiting. How is that not defamation? Kaylin, something false has to be said for it to be defamation. What did the NCAA say that was false? That's where I'm stuck.
Theoretically, they told Pat 40, hey, Pat, this one's really, really bad. Now, you didn't hear that from us, but this one's really, really bad. And they've been rogue for a long time. And that University of Tennessee is, man, that's not the way NIL was supposed to be. It's bad. It's bad, Pat. That could be false because it's subjective.
It's true. Now, the falsity would be the subjective part because Pat 40 did write that the investigation was major. It was a major violation. That's what was written. They were being investigated for a major violation.
And to be clear, now, this is not a Pat 40 conversation. Go ahead.
Yes, this is an NCAA conversation. I guess you could theoretically, and I don't want to end up on bad legal takes on Twitter, but I've studied libel law so like thoroughly that like it's I guess theoretically you could say that leaking that it was a major violation and not leaking that the idea that that this violation was based on a law that this violation was a violation of a rule that the rule itself is unlawful. You could theoretically say that they directly and purposely, with actual malice, implied Tennessee was going to be in trouble on the recruiting trail.
Hey now.
Ta-da!
Yes. Now, yeah, that Tennessee was going. You could. The Tennessee was going to face
all you have to do is get it through trial. You just have to get it through that first step of trial where it's not thrown out in the preliminary stages, and then
that's hot.
You got it. You got them playing defense. Who really cares if you win or not? You've got
Yeah.
more money than they do to play. I've got more Monopoly sets than you do, Caleb. I can pressure you.
Right. That's very true. Because then if they get the implication out there that if what they said, if you could prove that what they said, that any reasonable person would assume what they said was an implication that Tennessee was going to be headed for serious trouble, and that implication hurt them on the recruiting trail, and that the NCAA knew that that would be the implication by doing that and acted with actual malice, then yes, you have a suit. You've got a through line.
Thank you.
But yes, you have. But it has to be some sort of. Now, again, you and I both agree. Pat Forty can't be sued because Pat Forty didn't act with actual malice.
It's not about Pat Forty because they leaked it to more than just Pat Forty.
Yeah, they leaked it to Pat Forty. They leaked it to a couple other people. Those people wrote what they were told. That you could all day, every day sue them under the sun. It doesn't matter because they leaked what they were told. They didn't do any. They didn't defame anybody.
Again, the NCAA budget's $85 million. A major school, top 15 or so, is right around $200 million. You band together, they stand no chance of winning a drawn out case because they can't afford it. You can step on their throat and get them out of football. And whether or not the NCAA, whether or not the powers that be, Sankey, Big Ten, whether or not they get together and they actually do this, Caleb, doesn't really matter because the point is still they're on their deathbed, right?
Oh, yes, they are on their deathbed. This is to deliver
as far as football.
By the way, anybody know where the whole actual malice on public figures came from? It came from an SEC football related case. Funny enough.
Did not know that.
Curtis Publishing Company v. Butts in 19, I believe it was 68 or something like that.
I think his nickname was Seymour.
Okay. So, for those who don't, the defamation laws today are based on the New York Times v. Sullivan case of 64, I believe, which said that public officials, you have to prove actual malice. Well, Curtis Publishing Company accused Coach Butts and Bear Bryant of fixing games, of rigging games in the late 60s. And they sued and won, but even though they won, the Supreme Court said the actual malice clause for public officials stretches to all public figures, not just public officials. So that's actually where things got a... Yeah, so the whole concept of actual malice for public figures comes from a case that Bear Bryant and the Georgia coach's name was Wally Butts, I think.
Seymour. Seymour.
You were so ridiculous. Yeah.
I like Big. I like Big.
Oh my gosh, you were so ridiculous, Dave. But yeah,
right.
Wally Butts and Bear Bryant sued Curtis Publishing Company and won, but then the Supreme Court did rule that the public officials clause applies to all public figures.